Hello, my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to thank you for checking out my video. This is Community Questions 10. 10 of these I've done now. I was thinking I would do one a month, but kind of got away from me, and here we are in March. Actually, I don't think this is going to get released until April even, so kind of got behind the schedule there. But I digress. This is one of my favorite segments to do. I love taking your questions. I love offering my thoughts. Let's not dilly-dally. Thank you if you've chosen to subscribe. If you haven't yet, I hope you'll do so now. There are a myriad of ways to support my channel, and you will find them under the links in the description, because in Community Questions, I do a kind of like index of the topics I cover. So if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, you can skip to where you want to be. Anyways, the support options are below that. And they do include Patreon, where you can get MP3s and transcripts from the videos. Also, there's my website, which has a free method on it if you haven't checked it out before. All right. Are you going to upload more mixed voice exercises? I'm a baritone, and the high phrases are still a problem for me. I suspect that this individual is using mixed voice to mean cricothyroid dominant singing voice, which is to say the vocal practice that is above the secondo passaggio. This is confusing because mixed voice in some pedagogical disciplines means the distance between, that's the area between the primo and secondo passaggio. It's the point where you're going from your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, your chest voice, to your cricothyroid dominant singing voice, your head voice. The truth of the matter is that thyroarytenoid dominant still has aspects of the cricothyroid activity, and cricothyroid dominant, or the head voice, still has aspects of thyroarytenoid activity. And to answer your question, that's basically what my entire channel is about, is making this smooth transition into the upper register of the voice. In the baritone videos, the warm-ups that do not say full range will not exceed the kind of topmost baritone secondo passaggio location, which for a lyric baritone would be E, right above middle C. If it says full range, then it will exceed that, but it will not go beyond the next registration event. So it will generally top out around G or A flat for the baritones if it says full range. If it says extended range, it will go beyond that transition. So depending on what you've already got going on with your voice, the typical warm-ups without full range will not go through the secondo passaggio. However, they will incorporate aspects to facilitate that transition. Full range will transit the secondo passaggio, and they will focus on vowels and combinations of vowels and exercises to work on smoothing that area of transition out. Extended range will go even beyond that, and those videos, they kind of assume that you can already do a reasonably smooth transition over the secondo passaggio. If you have been in the practice of belting in the past, or you have pushed your chest voice higher and higher, or pulled your head voice lower and lower, it's quite likely that that secondo passaggio, that area of transition, can be obscured or poorly coordinated, and the exercises could pose some challenges, but nothing that can't be worked on and practiced. How do we increase the vocal range on lower end? A video on low range extension, especially for baritone, would be awesome. I haven't done a lot of those, and in fact, someone in the comments, and perhaps it was you in the comments on the channel in general, asked about doing more of those videos, and I will. The thing about it, though, is that so this gets a little bit skewed because, of course, as a teacher, I always want to enable you as someone who's looking at the work that I do on YouTube, or if we were in the room together taking a lesson, then I would be there helping you to facilitate and acquire the skills that you wish to have to sing the repertoire that you wish to sing, whatever that happens to be. That's what I do. That's what I wish to do. In my own personal kind of ethos on singing, I almost always stick to the ranges that either are typically going to be or can be made to be tonally consistent. In other words, as a tenor, I still will have exercises that go to B or B flat or A because those can still be produced with a tone quality that will match the G, the A, the B flat, and the B that are an octave above it. I don't usually make the tenor videos down to G or F, getting into sort of subharmonics and subtones and things like that, because that tone quality, though we can produce it, won't necessarily ever match the tone quality. So I'm not exactly sure what you're meaning by that. My intention was to do a low note video in the very near future that was still within the consistent ranges of the Fox. Now, for like a bass baritone, I'm probably going to go down to that C natural down there. So that might be enough room for you. But if not, when that video comes out, let me know, and then we can adjust as necessary. Can you please put up an exercise that helps you transition from head, nasal, throat, and chest? I'm not exactly sure what they're asking, because on the one hand, I think they're saying like head and chest voice. On the other hand, it sounds like they're talking about different tone qualities that one might have. And so on the one hand, again, that's kind of what my entire channel is about, is that transition between chest voice and head voice and back and forth between those registers of the voice. In terms of nasality or throatiness, there's one exercise that I use in the mask resonance video that you can use differently if you wish to increase that quality of the back of the throat sound. Specifically, it's this NG noise. I actually had a client doing that today, and they sounded just like a kazoo, and it was amazing. It was exactly right. Just brilliant, brilliant mask resonance that is such a necessary quality to a well-rounded sound. So, but the thing is that you can place that, you can feel that forward. However, you can sing that and then try to move it out of that masky area, that brilliant point that it creates. And it sounds like this. And that will result, when you release the tongue, in a very different sound. Still useful, still lovely, I think, in a different kind of way. Good practices. And as you practice moving that around, practicing with the point and practicing with it out of that point, you can find those sweet spots and hopefully find what you're looking for in those resonances, those tone qualities. Can you do a full exercise for mezzo-soprano and alto from intermediate to advance and sing full sharp and flat note on the piano? So I'm not sure what they mean by full sharp and full flat note on the piano. When I'm going through the exercises in the videos, I'm like going through all the key areas. I sometimes skip around a little bit to keep you on your toes and make sure that you're listening to the piano. I mean, of course, I'm not in the room with you most of the time when you're singing along with the video, if ever. But the point is that I'll sometimes skip a whole step here, skip a semitone there, just to make sure that you're really cueing into and actively listening as opposed to passively listening or relying purely on pattern behavior. I want us to actively listen into the piano so that we're hearing and maybe getting onto some of those oral skills as well as the singing technique. In some respects, I feel like I've done the intermediate to advanced because in the progressive warm-ups, I generally start with a limited range, with, generally speaking, easier combinations of vowels, and then I branch out from there, getting into vowel combinations that are sometimes more challenging or may pose additional challenges, and exercises that extend over various registration events in the given VOC. So I kind of feel like I have done those. If you look for progressive warm-ups or if you search the descriptions, I meant to mention in the other comments that were asking about different videos and things, my guidebook is really tailor-made for that kind of a thing, for you to find those sorts of warm-ups. It's very affordable. Unfortunately, I just had a sale that ended. If you're in the news group that you can sign up for on jeffrolka.com, you would have gotten a coupon for 20% off, which makes the guidebook even that much more affordable, but it's not that expensive to begin with. Anyway, it kind of already exists, but I'm sort of overdue for progressive warm-ups again, though in a way, the comprehensive warm-ups that were just released in December and January and February kind of do that too. So maybe check those. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description. Do you have daily riffs and runs warm-up video for advanced singers? There is a riffs video that's already out there. I'm long overdue. This is becoming a theme. I really need to catch up on some production. I'm long overdue for another riffs video, so I'm going to get that out there. But the riffs is already there. You might check it out. Again, I'll try to put a link in the description. Do you have any tips about how to break down a hard song to learn it and the right way to practice a piece? Also, any tips on operatic runs? Any tips on classical ornamentations, trills, and such? Lot in that question. How to break down a hard song. Go to the hard part, identify it. If possible, well, I guess I should leave possible out, because if we really, really want to break it down, then play the melody on the piano as slowly as is necessary, or some other type of tonal instrument. There's only 12 different notes, and you can get the little placards that'll tell you the note names if you really need to. Play them note by note. If it is in an area of your voice where it is challenging you because of the registration events, transpose it down in order to work on the vowels, the intervals, and the phrasing, and then gradually move it back up into the performance key. In classical repertoire, sometimes it's generally speaking, it's looked down upon to move things from their quote-unquote original keys. That being said, you will find examples out there where performers have moved things from one key to another by a whole step or a semitone or something. Additionally, the Vakai method is transposed for a variety of different voice types, and that's certainly classical. Caro mio ben is in the Vakai method, and it gets transposed all over the shop in facilitating that practice. So I'm not suggesting you transpose it for your performance, but I'm suggesting you transpose it as a practice. Additionally, transposing it that way will really tune your ear up to those intervals, and that will make such a big difference when you're back in your performance key, especially if it exceeds one of your registration events in terms of helping your intonation and overall delivery. Let's see, what else? Right way to practice a piece. I've covered a lot of that in that description. Additionally, the transposition topic and a lot of what I've discussed here is in the transposition video that came out a week before this. I'll try and put a link up there. Operatic runs, really the same thing. Slow it down, play them on piano, transpose them if they're in a range of your voice that is exceeding a registration event, and then practice the run, get your airflow, your phrasing, all of that sorted out in a comfortable area, and then move it back into the performance key. Sometimes it can be enough to just displace it by an octave rather than going through all the intermediary key areas. If that works for you, that's great too. And any tips on classical ornamentations, trills, and such? That's a fairly broad topic. My overarching suggestion would be to cultivate as much release and appropriateness of subglottic air pressure. One might call that support, but I prefer subglottic air pressure or engagement. Cultivate the appropriateness of that as possible. In other words, it is dynamic and it changes as you move from one range of your voice to another. It's not a set it and forget it kind of a thing. So the more appropriate your subglottic air pressure, so the more appropriate your airflow is to the range that you are singing in, the more release around the vocal mechanism you will cultivate. The more release you have, the more agility you will have, and therefore trills, runs, things like that will all be executed much more effortlessly. If you're trying to muscle your way through them, by incorporating that much muscle tension into your technique, it is going to inherently slow you down, if not make you also out of tune. What is the best way to increase speed for riffs and runs in both mix and chest voice? Also, how does mouth form affect runs? I saw a vocal teacher telling a student to use her mouth placement for the runs, and I never understood what she meant. Most of that I covered in the previous response. Start slow, work your way up to performance tempo. If it exceeds registration events in your voice, in other words, it goes over the middle voice registration event or goes over the secondo passaggio, then moving it to a more comfortable range while you work out your phrasing and work out the intervals and perhaps even the libretto is advisable, and then move it back to performance key as you practice it. This will additionally really tune your ear up to the intervals and the runs that you are singing. I don't know what video you're referring to. There is a lot of talk about different mouth positions and things like that. Mouth position and jaw opening has in fact changed quite a bit over the years. It used to be open it as wide as you can. Then it became open it gradually as you ascend. Now, in vocal pedagogy, we are making a greater dispensation for the different typical shapes of your vowels. So an ah vowel tends to benefit from a bit of a kind of open mouth profile, whereas an O or an U vowel tends to benefit more from more space in the rear of the oral cavity. So if an ah is like a megaphone opening this way, an U benefits a bit more from a megaphone in reverse, where this is the rear of your mouth and you've got more space back here by the nasal pharynx in the rear for that vowel to resonate. If I were to give you one big tip about mouth shape, tongue shape, jaw shape, all of this is our greatest asset is flexibility. If you are singing a piece of music or a song or whatever it happens to be, it doesn't really matter. Different consonants require different shapes. Different vowels require different shapes. Different tessituras can require more or less of an opening at the aperture, the front of your mouth, and therefore a different position of the jaw. If we are locked into one position at all times, then we will inherently be wrong other times because those different vowels, those different consonants will require different shapes to be enunciated properly. Flexibility is the key. Therefore, when you're practicing your scales, it can be advantageous to try to go from a closed position to an open position. Just the motion of opening and closing the jaw can help you cultivate release of the TMJ musculature at the TMJ joint so that you're able to be flexible, you're able to adopt the shape that is most advantageous for the consonant-vowel combination that you are about to sing. I'm an actor, singer, and recently started getting into opera. I'm 32, I have some vocal training, but nothing too intensive. Is it too late to start training the voice at this age, to be able to really sing it professionally? If not, what would I need to focus on? Thank you. So back to front here, if not, what I would need to focus on, that I find that a little bit perplexing, because if I'm answering to the question and you're not going to go that route, then I guess you could just do whatever you like. There's really no answer to that, because if you're asking me whether to start or to stop, if you start training, then there's kind of a course of action. If you decide not to train, well, then you can kind of do whatever you like. In truth, you can do whatever you like anyway. But I would encourage you to at least start training, even if you're not sure, because at the risk of sounding sort of new agey, if you have this desire, if you have this passion to pursue what is, in my opinion, a very beautiful art form, then why not? You're 32. Didn't somebody say, like, what, is it like 70 is the new 50 or something like that? So 32 is like the new 12. You're just getting, that's ridiculous, of course. But practically speaking, many male voices do not fully develop until they're getting into their 40s. Generally speaking, that's the lower tessituras, but even as a tenor, you're still kind of in the developmental stages of your voice and your vocal training. If you can do the training, if you can get with a reputable teacher who can work with you on operatic techniques and moving in that direction, I would encourage you to do so. If you really wish to sing professionally, that would be my advice, to go and get with someone who can really move you in that direction, has a firm foundation in the technical practice. I am, of course, very fond of Richard Miller's teachings, so you might consider, in my opinion, I would advise you to consider someone who's at least familiar with that methodology. Whether or not you'll ever grace the stage of the Met, who's to say? And I would suggest to you that if a teacher tries to sell you on that might not necessarily be the person to study with, that you might want to find someone who is thinking about it as a process, as a learning process, as a developmental process. One of aligning vowels, of understanding registration events, of understanding how the voice functions. And as you go on, you can then make your decisions about whether or not you want to do this professionally. And I would suggest to you too that there are any variety of professional occupations that you can do with a singing voice. Being an opera singer doesn't just mean singing in front of a symphony. There are lots and lots of different things that you can do. You could form a duo with a pianist and do that. That is a beautiful, beautiful mode of expression, and there's lovely repertoire that you can sing. It's gorgeous. If, on the other hand, you want to pursue that operatic path, then that teacher can, if not get you firmly on that path, can at least work with you to develop the technique that is required to get you moving in that direction, work on the repertoire, and start making headway. I would suggest to you that anything in addition that you can do from a music study standpoint will also help you. So if you don't play piano yet, at least a rudimentary understanding of the notes would be very helpful. If you do not read music, having a functional understanding of music reading would be very helpful. I'm not saying you have to read it like the back of your hand, but being able to reasonably quickly identify the notes and their durations will be very, very helpful and will make it more possible for you to pursue a career in opera if that's ultimately what you choose to do. Bottom line, let's just put all that aside for a second. Today is the day to start, because tomorrow is one more day further on that you didn't start yesterday. So maybe if you're not sure, but it's possible for you to pursue it, then I would suggest you get started. Get going, and as you get into the process, of aligning vowels, establishing apagio breath management, understanding registration, and blah, 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 all these technical things, if you like it and it is serving you in your desirable mode of artistic expression, then the answer will be clear to keep on going. If it's arduous, if you don't like it, if you find that it just doesn't feel like it's worth it, then maybe there's a different aspect of the classical repertoire that you would like more. Or maybe you can turn that classical technique into something else. Or fill in the blank. That's up for you to decide. As always, I hope this helps. I really enjoyed the questions. Thank you all so much for chiming in on such short notice. My name is Jeff. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. Hopefully we'll see you again.